So by virtue of what we do at Funding Options, it's fair to say that we found ourselves at the epicenter of the economic fallout post-lockdown. So at Funding Options, we help SMEs gain access to funding quite simply. So we sit between the businesses and a lender panel of sort of 200 plus, covering all of the banks, the neos, the challengers, and then all of the alternative lenders. So the biggest issue for us was, how do we cope with the demand? And to give an idea of some of the stats, in March alone, we saw more than £1 billion worth of loan applications by cumulative value pass through Funding Options, which is about 500% up on any month previous. So the demand that we saw was absolutely stratospheric. Post the announcements, I think it's fair to say also that there was a lot of confusion, some very positive announcements from the government, but a lack of clarity around how would that be distributed. So the biggest challenge for us is, how do we cope with that demand and where do we place that demand? And so there became a very obvious need for a common infrastructure. And that's the role that open banking effectively plays, because open banking clearly gives us the ability to pull digitally bank transaction information from a business and then channel that information digitally to lenders. So essentially, it's about, how do we give our lender panel the quickest opportunity to efficiently evaluate whether the applications that we were sending their way are viable for their proposition and are viable overall. So that's the approach that we took, and we agreed a partnership initially with 20 lenders, but that has already grown since announcement, and we think that will grow to the majority of our panel, hopefully within a very short space of time. It's a great question. My immediate response is yes, I do believe that this is going to, I think, push open banking forward significantly. And I, personally, and on behalf of Funding Options, I absolutely hope that's the case. For me, the piece that's missing is adoption across the board. So if you look at the number of lenders that will consume open banking data digitally, it's actually only a fraction of where it should be. Without naming names and sort of shining too much of a negative light, shall we say, on the CBIL scheme, but there are lenders credited to that scheme who are only lending to their own customers. And one of the excuses they give is, well, we couldn't possibly lend to anybody else's customers because we can't see their bank transaction information, which sort of makes a mockery of what's available there via open banking. So, I'm being a little bit pointed there, but the principle absolutely is there. The more adoption of open banking there is across the market, then I think the greater efficiency, the greater success, it can only improve things. I think the critical thing is that we come together in as unified a fashion as we possibly can. So there's sort of industry bodies. If you think of the likes of Innovate Finance with Charlotte and the work that she's been doing with a consortium of lenders, for example, Enterprise Nation, there's a number of industry recognized bodies who are really trying to push the overall voice to the powers that be. I think that is absolutely the right approach. It would be remiss of me if I said that I think that the voice hasn't yet been heard, right? So realistically, if you look at where the UK is versus, for example, where the US is, 4,664 lenders involved in a mass push of lending to SMEs. More than 1 million loans have been issued in the US in a shorter space of time than we've had in the UK to do the same thing, and we've not achieved even a fraction of those numbers. So I think we just need to be persistent, we need to be creative, but collectively is the key. So I think from a cross-industry perspective, I think the panel on here, there's a number of exceptional people and exceptional companies represented. I would like to see us come together and sort of drive almost like a working group type approach for the UK and potentially beyond, set the example for the globe, but come together in some kind of sort of working group fashion to continue to push the agenda. I've talked about the need for there to be a unified voice rather than that fragmented approach, and that's absolutely critical. We're very, very committed to this, and I think this is a unique, once-in-a-generation opportunity for the government, predominantly, and other industry bodies to really push the agenda for open banking. And I think that will set the stage for the UK to be very much leading in that capacity.